Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann, and this is the award-winning Fan Show. Thank you, and thank you over there. People in the back, thank you. Thank all of you. It is Thursday. We are 3 short days away from Super Bowl 54. Hallelujah, amen. It's been a long 2 weeks, but we just have to get through 3 more sleeps before the big game. I'm very excited about it, personally, for obvious reasons, if you couldn't tell just by tuning in. But I do think that when it comes down to excitement and things like that for the big game, it's the Super Bowl. And although it's Super Bowl 54, this is the culmination, the finale, the big shebang of the NFL's 100th season, which, all things considered, I feel has gone very well. I was skeptical at first. I will be fully honest with you, brutally honest, but I think that it went as well as could be expected. There were, of course, some issues with the new rule that was in place, challenging pass interference, as far as not if that was actually pass interference, but just more so like, hey, you missed pass interference. And we saw quite a few games have that happen in them, some in crucial moments, others not so much. But at the end of the day, I feel very good about the product that I saw out on the field. I think you had a really good mix of teams that were in it kind of for a majority of the season. I mean, the number 1 seed for the NFC wasn't even determined until the last game of the regular season. I say again, the number 1 seed for an entire conference was not decided until the last game, Sunday Night Football, of the 2019-2020 regular season. That speaks volumes for the field of competition that you saw. You're always going to have divisions like the NFC East. It is what it is. I've said my piece about teams and winning divisions and hosting playoff games. It didn't matter for them. It really didn't. But I would like to see teams that win more games than they lose by a lot rewarded. That's my whole thing about it. And I made that point very clear during that episode. So if you're confused at all, I can refer you back to a previous one. But again, all things considered, I feel like this was a great season. You saw a lot of things that really broke up what we were used to seeing. Tom Brady and the Patriots played well all season long. They were one of the last few remaining undefeated teams. And then they struggled against really good teams that would end up in the playoffs with seeds higher than them, and they would exit in the wild card round. Drew Brees and his Saints had a record-setting year, another powerhouse of a team, one that everyone would thought would represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, an early exit in the playoffs as well. So you exit Brady, you exit Brees, and in the NFC Championship game, you exit Aaron Rodgers. Your quarterbacks that made a deep run into the playoffs, excluding Aaron Rodgers, were Ryan Tannehill, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just think that really speaks for the future of this league, what the NFL's 100th season is supposed to kind of signify, that we're closing a chapter at 100 years, and now we're looking to the next 100. And it really starts with this playoff and this Super Bowl. So, well done, NFL and its teams. I think, again, could go as well as could be expected for the century mark for the NFL. Short of scripting it, I don't think that you could have a better end result than this. I know that I don't believe it was scripted because a lot of people wanted the Final Four to be the Saints, the 49ers, the Ravens and the Chiefs. That's what a majority of the fans wanted to see. They wanted to see Lamar Jackson square off against Pat Mahomes again. And they wanted to see the rematch of the Saints and the 49ers. Some even went so far as to say a third game between the Seahawks and 49ers wouldn't have been so bad because the first two were so great. But those were the final four that a lot of people I talked to wanted, unless of course you're a Packers fan or a Titans fan. And I get it, you wanted your team to be there, and they were. But we're talking about if the NFL scripts it. I don't believe that they do. This year they had plenty of opportunity to script it certain ways, including the Super Bowl itself. They had the chance to put the Packers against the Chiefs, but that is not the matchup. It is the 49ers versus the Chiefs. Jimmy Garoppolo, Pat Mahomes, two great defenses, two great offenses, and I am so excited for this game. I still can't believe that it's here. The NFL's 100th season, the Super Bowl 54, is here, and I just want a good game, and I think it will. There's been a lot of people that have said one way or the other who's going to win, like a lot. Like I thought it was going to be all KC all day because Pat Mahomes is the X factor apparently. But everybody that's chosen the team that they have has made a great case for why they believe that team will win. I've been listening to sports radio all week. It's unavoidable. Like I try not to listen to the media or the peanut gallery during a week or a time as monumental as this, but it's unavoidable, especially in my line of work. So I've been listening to a lot of sports talk radio, and I'm surprised to hear some of the picks that I have. Guys that have picked the Chiefs, of course, they talk about the offense, the weapons that Mahomes have, and Mahomes himself being a weapon. They talk about 49ers and the defense, and the question mark is, can Jimmy G win big games? And I think it's just really a moot point now. My special guest tonight, though, is Matt Barr. He's a contributor and a writer for 49ers Hub, and he's one of the hosts of the Fourth and Gold podcast. He's been very active on social media. I like a lot of his takes. Him and I seem to be on the same mental wavelength when it comes to why we think what we do when it comes to the 49ers and their opponents thus far. So great talk with him. You guys are really going to enjoy that. But before we get to that, of course, we have headlines from around the world of sports. So without further ado, here we are with today's headlines. Headlines, of course, brought to you by Dynamite Enterprises. They want to help you customize your world, and they can do that in a number of ways. If it's anything from a tablecloth to a drop and repeat and or backdrop, they can do custom plaques, trophies, different types of awards. They can do t-shirts, polos, beanies, hats, probably socks, shoes if you asked them to. Vests, jackets. I mean, they do so many things. They've done a number of things for me, and I couldn't be happier with the result. And Ethan will work so hard to make sure that you are 110% satisfied with your product. I've said many stories on here about just how above and beyond he has gone for me and the F.A.N show, and I'm happy to refer him and anyone to him. So with that, visit dynamiteenterprises.com. Or you can reach out to him directly, Ethan at dynamiteenterprises.com. If you have in mind what you would like him to customize, he will do that. And you can check out their Instagram. Great place to see what they've done and all the things that they're trying to do for the first time that they want to get the word out. Go and follow them on Instagram at Dynamite Enterprises. The website is great as well, but the Instagram really is a wonderful tool to see just what they're all about. So Dynamite Enterprises, they can customize your world. And, I think for me, the headlines today, obviously the Super Bowl, but Greg Olsen and the Carolina Panthers have agreed to mutually part ways. How crazy is that? It's super duper crazy. I did not see that one coming. I thought it was going to be Cam Newton and the Panthers at first, if anybody was going to mutually part ways. But no, Greg Olsen. Awesome tight end. Probably right up there. I would say it's Kittle, Kels, Ertz, Olsen, Graham, And whoever the guy is on the Seahawks roster at the time, they know how to make great use of their tight ends, unless that tight end is Jimmy Graham. How ironic. But yeah, Olsen, always been very good, very productive. I am surprised to see them mutually part ways. He must feel like whatever their game plan is, as far as who they're bringing in, is not worth his time. I'm not saying he's at the end of his career, but they've already lost Kuechly to retirement. So for them to mutually part ways, I thought that was very, very interesting. You guys can weigh in your thoughts on Kittle. I'm very interested to see what you guys think about that. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. Also, we have, of course, the headline that is the Super Bowl. And yeah, we can break this thing down all day long or for the next 3 days. Before we do, I'll give you my 2 cents, of course. The XFL is 9 days away. And the kickoff to the 2020 IFL season is 37 days away. The winter meetings, as they call them, the owners and coaches meeting down in Frisco, Texas, those meetings have concluded. And from what I know, which really isn't a lot, there wasn't anything, I believe, voted on at this. It was more of just kind of a meet and greet, since they have added the Frisco team and then the eventual Columbus team. So it was a chance for them to kind of mix and mingle. But I do hear that there are, expansion-wise, there are markets interested in areas that would help out the Pacific Northwest. And Spokane wouldn't be quite so alone up there. So that's good to hear. With the folding of the AFL, the IFL has obviously become the premier indoor football league. So there's a lot of very interested markets, but interested and what's the word? Good ownership. Interested markets and good ownership are two very different things. I think the IFL is on the right track. And then, there was a few discussions about rules, but nothing solidified. So there will be more on that, I'm sure, as the days go by and the weeks tick down to the official kickoff, 2020. So that's all that I know about that. Let's see who's on the chat today. I see Brian. I see Adam. I see Jason. I even see Alicia. Hi, Alicia. We don't get many girlies in the chat, but welcome. Adam says, I was okay with San Francisco murdering Green Bay again. It was delicious. unless you like cheese. It probably didn't taste so good. Or maybe if you do like cheese. How does that work? I don't know. Thirsty. Anyway, so the Super Bowl is one of those games where a lot of people think it will go one way and then it doesn't. I'll never forget when I gave my score prediction for the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl. I ended up being 1 point off for each team, and I had picked the wrong winner. So I picked the Falcons to win by a walk-off touchdown in overtime, and I was 1 point off for both teams. Now, in case you don't remember, the Patriots won by a walk-off touchdown in overtime, the first time that has ever happened in Super Bowl history. I mean, that was a bet I should have went all in on, because I could have really made bank just on that prop bet alone. I was so shocked that I actually said this game is going to end in a walk-off touchdown in overtime. I just got the winner wrong. And that's crazy. I feel like it's kind of pointless for me to pick a winner of this one. I'm not going to make a score prediction or anything, but I will say that a lot of people, like I said earlier, that have picked the team that they have made very valid points as to why they believe that they will win. For me, I think it really comes down to not necessarily Kansas City's offense versus San Francisco's defense. I think it comes down to the 49ers offense against the Kansas City defense. That's the matchup that nobody's really talking about. And rightfully so, it's not the sexy matchup. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo has not been put into the same positions as Pat Mahomes has as far as needing to come back from down 24-0. He's had shootouts with Drew Brees and Kyler Murray and Jared Goff. But, you know, Mahomes, as far as the AFC playoff picture is concerned, you know, that may have been the stronger conference as a whole. But I think that the NFC was, if they weren't the stronger of the two, they were second by, super close margin. It was not like there was a big gap between which conference was the superior one. We're talking like the difference of, an orange and a tangerine. There is not a huge difference. A little bit of size, a little bit of taste. That's about it. So for the Chiefs, it's about basically trying to pick apart the 49ers defense. And for the 49ers defense, it's about not only locking down their receivers and putting pressure on Mahomes, it's about getting turnovers. I mean, so many of their big wins have been because they were able to create and take advantage of turnovers. We're not talking 3 and outs or, missed field goals. We're talking about taking the ball away, interceptions, strip sacks, forcing fumbles. That's what the defense will need to do, because the more that the ball is in Jimmy G and the 49ers offensive hands and the less it's in Pat Mahomes and his offensive hands, the better that this game will go for Shanahan and company. But I also would be, I think, stupid to assume that Lynch, Shanahan, that whole team, Saleh and all of them, haven't planned for if they're behind early. It's stupid to think that they've only planned for if they have the lead, how to keep that lead. I think that they have a plan for if they're down, and if they're down by 7, 10, 14, 21. I think that they've probably planned for the absolute worst case scenarios in this. And why wouldn't you? It's the Super Bowl. So I think the 49ers are in good hands when it comes to the game prep and planning for an offense like the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs. But I haven't decided how I'm going to enjoy the Super Bowl. In fact, Matt Barr and I, we chuckle about how he's going to enjoy the Super Bowl. But the Super Bowl is 3 days away, so 3 more sleeps. Can you feel it? I can feel it. I'm looking around the studio here. I've got so much 49er stuff. And it used to be that I only wanted practical 49ers things. A winter hat, right? Love this hat. You guys have seen the story about the hat. Most of you have anyway. This shirt I got from a friend of mine who we stayed with while I was down in San Francisco for that Monday night game. It's got the saloon style text on it. I absolutely love this shirt. But it used to be, for the longest time, I only wanted practical items of the 49ers. So if it was going to be like a beer koozie, or maybe a hat or a shirt or a polo, or a pencil holder. But then, people started getting me just random knickknack stuff, and it's just collected throughout my studio here. It's crazy. Of course, I had to get a foam finger the first ever 49ers home game that I went to. Had to get the foam finger, so I got that. And then a friend of mine got me the 49ers Fan Cave sign here, which is fitting since the studio is called the Fan Cave. And then this I got years and years and years ago. This guy used to play the whole Monday Night Football theme song, and he'd dance along to it. He would dance. He would shake his hips like Shakira. These hips don't lie. But the battery is gone so dead that it gets through the first 3 notes and then it's over. But yeah, he's just creepy now. So anyway, for those of you listening that can't see on the Facebook Live, it showed a foam finger, one of those big wooden signs that says Niners Fan Cave, where there is no off season, and then about a 18-inch tall ventriloquist-like dummy that has the 49ers from the 90s helmet and jersey on, that stands on a platform that will shake its hips and dance to the old school Monday Night Football theme song. Are you ready for some football? Yeah, that one. They kind of do it now, but it's like a remix. So I get the most random stuff, and I'll never say no to it. I'll never say no to 49ers things that are, whether they're cups or mini helmets, shot glasses. I'm just looking around now. I will never say no to something that's 49ers to add to the studio. It's one of those things now. So I'm in my element. I'm very excited for the Super Bowl. Of course, after the Super Bowl, we will be beginning our regularly scheduled programming on the Fan Show concerning the IFL countdown. I have guests already lined up for next week. Tuesday might be one of those days where we hopefully are celebrating a Super Bowl victory, or I call it a day because Monday wasn't enough to mourn the loss. I don't know. We'll have to play that one out. But still, though, starting next week, we will be having more IFL players, coaches, as we continue the countdown to the IFL 2020 season. We're going to be talking a lot of XFL also as that gets closer and closer to the beginning of that. So really, this one, just a preview of the Super Bowl. I want to thank all of you guys. It's been a great NFL season. And like I said, not just for me, but I feel like NFL 100 is a season that a lot of us are going to remember. And the Super Bowl will be a perfect representation of the season so far. But enjoy my conversation with Matt Barr. Him and I had, like I said, a fantastic talk about the Super Bowl, the matchup, how he became a 49ers fan, and much, much more. So without further ado or any more delay, I give you Matt Barr of 49ers Hub and, of course, Fourth and Gold, the podcast. Enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill. It is Super Bowl week, the home stretch, the final countdown, and I am joined by a very special guest. He's a contributor for 49ers Hub as well as one of the hosts of Fourth and Gold podcast, Matt Barr. Matt, welcome. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, this is the time of year that obviously every fan of all 32 teams hopes to reach, because you can't get much more of a finale than being in the Super Bowl. And so you're one of 32 teams that's made it that far. But I do love the Twitter buzz most of all. And I've seen your account pop up several times, and you've always had really good takes on everything. How long have you been a Niners fan for?
My whole life, really. So when I was a little kid, I was born in San Francisco. I had Navy parents who moved to the East Coast, and I'm 5 years old. I'm obsessed with everything San Francisco. And so I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, Dad, who's the team from San Francisco? He says, the 49ers. All right, cool. When do they play next? They play tonight. Is it a big game? He goes, well, it's a Super Bowl. So the first NFL game I ever sat down to watch was actually 25 years ago today, and I was watching the 49ers just boat race the Chargers in the Super Bowl. Been a super fan ever since. My old man told me, he's like, you can pick them, but you better stick with them. So it's just been my torture for the last 25 years. And I'm hoping to see them break the curse and get the monkey off their back like Steve Young did.
Yeah, and it was interesting. We're actually going to talk about that monkey here in a minute, because that was something that came up today. But you and I obviously became fans around a similar time period, because I do not recall their last Super Bowl victory, the one that was Steve Young. However, a lot of people ask me, who's your guy? Steve Young. I grew up in the Steve Young era. I'm not going to claim Montana, because I just, I see the highlights, great, but Montana was not the era that I grew up in as far as 49ers go. And then after that, Frank Gore, Patrick Willis, those are my guys. Right now, it's really Bosa and I think Kittle and Mostert's doing a phenomenal job. But I'm a huge fan of defense. I thought our 2012 through 2013 defense and 2011 was just an outstanding defense that really went underappreciated for that whole run. But anyway, so my origin story, a lot of people know, was that at recess you played football or you didn't play anything, right, as a boy.
Correct.
And so I didn't know how to play football. My dad, who had suffered a stroke some years before, couldn't really go through physically teaching me how to play football. So thankfully, my best friend, my neighbor at the time, him and his older brother were from the Bay, and they said, look, we're going to teach you this. That way you can play, and that way you're not sitting around looking stupid anymore. And I said, perfect. So all their examples that they used to teach me were 49ers, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, and all this stuff. And it's stuck ever since then. But I also had a similar moment where, like your dad was saying, if you're going to pick them, stick with them. And I remember when it came time for me to kind of like pick my team, I said, well, maybe I should pick the Seahawks since I'm a Washington native. And he goes, absolutely not. Like, if you're going to pick any team, it's going to be the 49ers. And I wish I could recall that Super Bowl, but I'm very thankful that I got to grow up watching Steve Young, Brett Favre, Tom Brady early years, even Kurt Warner. I mean, those are some of my favorite memories, even if, they haven't won a Super Bowl since just before then. I'm really hoping that changes this year as well. So it's awesome. This is a big weekend for both of us then.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't seem like it's been that long since the 49ers were in the Super Bowl. But I was thinking about it the other day, and I was talking with Javi before we recorded the pod this past weekend, and I realized that I joined the Marines. I went through an entire enlistment in the Marines in between them making the Super Bowl. So 6 years doesn't sound like a lot, but so much in my life has happened that it feels like eons ago that they were playing the Ravens.
It's funny to hear the media make a bigger deal out of something than it is. You're right. 6 years is a long time between Super Bowls if you're a fan of a team that is no stranger to Super Bowls. Like, obviously, if you're a Bills or a Vikings fan or even a Detroit or now, of course, a Kansas City Chiefs fan, like you're just happy to be there, hoping to change your own history. But, for the Cowboys fans, the 49ers fans, you can't really say the Patriots fans, but for the Steelers fans, it's like there can be a long time, even with as many championships as those teams have, between one and the next, because you're not guaranteed that you're going to win your next one anyway. And so when guys on the media will say, so what, we're in 2020 now, and it was 2019 season leading up to this point, they'll be like, so-and-so is a team that hasn't been to the playoffs since 2016. I was like, okay, so 3 years. Like, we're going to make a big deal out of 3-year drought or whatever and not making the playoffs. Or when they say that a team scored 14 unanswered points, it's like, okay, so they scored twice, Yeah. It's just, it always blows me away how big of a deal media will make out of things. In your coverage, what's been the biggest thing that they've blown out of proportion in Countdown to the Super Bowl?
Oh, there's a bunch of things. Trust me, there's a bunch of things. But the number one thing we run into is Jimmy G can't carry the team.
Oh, yeah.
He only threw 8 passes in the NFC Championship game, and that's fine. But when you're running the ball for 7 yards a carry, I don't care who your quarterback is. I don't care if it's Tom Brady. You don't just care if it's Tom Brady in his prime. You were running the ball. 7 yards a carry is an absurd number to be getting. And when you're winning and you want to eat at the clock and you want to shorten the game, you want to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, throwing the ball isn't the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. Look, we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo win in so many different ways. So many different ways this year. We saw him win a shootout in New Orleans. We saw him win a shootout against the Rams in Week 16. We saw him bring the team back from 16-0 against the Cardinals. Now, I know the Cardinals aren't that great, but as we all know, division games are a completely different monster.
Oh, yeah.
You never know who's going to win those ones. So we've seen Jimmy win. We've seen him we've seen the defense carry him. We've seen the running game carry him. We've also seen him put the team on his back.
Yep.
And I'm getting real sick of the Jimmy can't do it. And everyone wants to anoint Patrick Mahomes as the greatest thing since sliced bread. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback.
Which
he might be the best in the league right now, but Jimmy can play, and he's not some slouch.
And it's funny you say that about Pat Mahomes, because I remember not even like 3 months ago, it's probably been just actually a month, that Lamar Jackson was the greatest thing to ever suit up in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden everybody's back on the Mahomes wagon. It's just funny to me to see how the tide turns so quickly for media and who the NFL wants you to like. So yeah, two very different quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo and Patrick Mahomes, because Jimmy, we've only seen him thrive in situations where he was called upon to thrive. You mentioned New Orleans, you mentioned the time against the Rams, the Cardinals, and yeah, absolutely. You can't write off teams like the Rams or the Cardinals because they're subpar this year. They're still divisional opponents that know your team better than, the other teams out there in the rest of the league, save for maybe some teams that you have a storied history with, like the Cowboys or Packers. But even then, they're not playing you twice a year,
Right.
So I think the comparison is comical. But really, the story of this game is going to be the 49ers defense against the Kansas City Chiefs offense. In your breakdown and analysis, what do you see as the keys to victory for San Francisco?
So the biggest key is they have to get pressure with just their front four.
Yes.
We've seen them do it all year. They're finally fully healthy. Practice report came out today. D Ford's not listed on the injury report. Coming into this, there's a lot of folks saying, oh, D Ford's banged up. He might not be 100%. He wasn't listed on the injury report today. So he's 100%. He's ready to rock and roll. They have to get pressure with those front four and be able to drop 7 into coverage. The 2 sloppiest games the Chiefs played all year was against I was about to say San Diego. It was against the LA Chargers. And the LA Chargers and the San Francisco 49ers play a very similar defense. They both play cover 3. They both drop 7 and get pressure with their front four. That gave the Chiefs the hardest 2 games of the year for their offense. 49ers defense is better than the Chargers defense. I think the 49ers, I'm not saying they're going to hold them completely because you can't. It's an Andy Reid offense coming off a bye. They're going to get theirs.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill's going to get his. Travis Kelce going to get his. But I think if they can get pressure with their front four, drop 7, they have a good chance to at least contain them. I think the key is to hold them to 35 or less points. I know that sounds outrageous. I know that sounds like, 35 points, that's what you're going to spot them. But that's the reality of what you have to look at when it comes to Kansas City offenses. If they can hold them to 35 or less, which no one has been able to do in the playoffs so far, if they can hold them to that, they got a really, really good shot to win.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the front four 100% because it starts with the pressure on the quarterback. However, what I've noticed about San Francisco, that they're a team that you don't want to do this against, and that's turn it over. And it's, the Vikings, there was a costly turnover there, and there was also a couple of 3-and-outs. So it's not necessarily worrying about your corners and DBs locking down the receivers and then allowing your front four to get to the quarterback. It's also about creating opportunities to get you back the ball and take that possession away from Kansas City. And I think if anybody is capable of doing that against a high-powered offense like KC, it's the 49ers defense. And that's where, in my mind, that's the key to victory, and that's the game changer right there, is not just locking down the receivers and limiting them as far as, shorter movement of the chains and things like that, or making them go a full three downs instead of picking up the first on first down or second down, but also creating those turnovers that gets you the ball back so it takes a possession away from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Creating turnovers is going to be absolutely huge in this game, and a lot of that starts with pressure on the quarterback. Get pressure on the quarterback. They rush some throws. They overlook a linebacker. They don't see a safety lurking. They don't see K1 Williams, who I think is going to be a huge part of this game as the slot corner. You force Patrick Mahomes into some mistakes, and not only the front four has to get pressure, they have to keep Mahomes in the pocket. Once Mahomes gets out of the pocket, he becomes extremely dangerous. And all of a sudden, that pressure you created allows guys like Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman to elongate their routes and use their speed to create separation, because you know how hard it is to cover a wide receiver for 5-6 seconds. That goes exponentially up when you're talking about guys that ran a 4.24 and a 4.34 40. It's so hard to keep up with those guys. The front four is going to have to keep Mahomes in the pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the matchup everybody wants to see. Of course, the other matchup that I think will determine the outcome of this game will then be San Francisco's offense against Kansas City's defense. Anything in particular that stands out to you about that matchup?
The Chiefs' defense reminds me a lot of the Packers' defense in that they have talent up front and they have talent in the secondaries, particularly at the safety positions. The issue they have is their linebackers are not very good. They're just not very good. They're not top tier. When you look at guys like the 49ers trotting out there with Quan Alexander and Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw as 3 solid guys, I don't think Kansas City has that. And they struggle with pre-snap motion. Now, as we all know, Kyle Shanahan loves pre-snap motion. He uses it 74% of the time. And linebackers are key in that communication. So I think that Kyle's going to be able to out-scheme Steve Spagnuolo on defense. And when it comes to Kyle Shanahan offense versus Steve Spagnuolo defense, there's a lot of success history there. A lot of success history for Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and Shanahan is another guy that is looking to get a monkey off of his back. Of course, it's a completely different scenario and situation, but everybody likes to play that card of pinning the 28-3 comeback loss to the Patriots on him, and it's not solely on him. But obviously, we're not seeing the same Kyle Shanahan. It's a very different scenario here, a very different team, and I feel like he's driven, he's motivated, and he wants to right his wrongs by getting the monkey off his back as we celebrate 25 years since Steve Young got the monkey off of his back, which I saw today, as I mentioned, we'd come back to the monkey here, that he regrets saying that because he wasn't trying to take away anything that he had learned playing for Walsh or back up to Montana. I've never taken it that way. I've seen it as a guy who had to get out of a shadow that is Montana, and I don't think there's a bigger shadow in the world of football to get out of than that. And a guy that wanted to silence the doubters. I mean, how did you take it? I don't know if you saw the same tweet or article as I did, but what were your first thoughts as far as what getting the monkey off his back meant to you?
Well, I absolutely took it as him trying to get out of Montana's shadow. And I think in a way, Garoppolo is trying to do the same thing, right? He played behind Tom Brady. Yep. So he's kind of trying to do the same thing. I didn't take it as a slight to Montana. I didn't take it as a slight to Bill Walsh. However, we live in hot take land where everybody's got something to say. Yep. And it doesn't take long for a very innocent statement to be blown completely out of the water, twisted, and taken the wrong way. And I think it's kind of morphed itself into that at this point. And Steve Young, being the consummate professional he is, and the stand-up guy, I think he's just like, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to get it out there. I'm going to cover my rear end, and I'm going to try and make sure no one is offended by what I said. But I never took it as a slight at either Montana or Walsh.
Yeah, I think it's silly to think that, and I could understand why Steve would, but it's been so many years, and I've never once it's never crossed my mind that he meant it that way. But again, we're talking about an era that I didn't exactly live through to see, and the media coverage for the NFL is so different now than it was then. I mean, even 10 years ago. But we have so much more in-depth look at players and their lives and their feelings, or so we think, than we did, at that point in time. So I'll take it for what he wants to give it, but I never faulted him for saying that, because I really do feel like it was his coming out party as far as trying to get out of Montana's shadow and make a name for himself and solidify his spot in the history of NFL, and then, of course, eventually into the Hall of Fame. So we have the Super Bowl this weekend. Any special way that you will enjoy this one? Anything you're doing differently from the last one?
Yeah, so the last one, I went to a buddy's house, and I watched it with a group of friends. This time, I'm locking myself in my house, and the only person who's going to see my psychosis is my wife and dogs. That is it. I am not dealing with anybody else. I've been invited to parties. No, thank you. I will be pacing behind my couch. I think during the Vikings game, I put 4,000 steps on a pedometer.
Oh boy.
I'm just a pacer. I can't sit still. So I will be watching from home with no distractions and no one over. No one over. I want nothing to do with anybody this weekend.
Yeah, it's something that I feel like it snuck up on me. I mean, obviously, the number one seed doesn't exactly sneak up on you. However, we didn't know until week 17 if it was going to be the number one seed. But my point is that I didn't expect them to be this good this soon under Lynch and Shanahan. And I feel like if I was better prepared, I would have tried to be at that Super Bowl or just be in Miami, because it seems like it's, the culmination of the NFL's 100th season, and they're, rolling out all the red carpets, all the glitz and glam, and it would just be a really fun environment to be a part of. But I don't want to go and watch it with a bunch of strangers. There are certain ways that people will watch and do their own kind of sidebar commentary that really ruins the game watching experience for me. So believe me when I tell you that if you're going to lock yourself in a room and watch it on your laptop, I fully support that idea, because this is our moment. It's our game. It's 50-50 shot to win or lose this thing. And I just don't want it ruined by something outside my control.
Yeah, no, I've been doing it all year. I haven't watched any of the games with anybody. I watched with my parents when they were in town a little bit, but never anyone big, never any party, never going out to watch the games at a bar or anything. No, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'll be pacing behind my couch watching on the TV.
Absolutely. I will wear the same thing I have worn all season long, and I will, try to enjoy myself the way. I mean, I've been trying to enjoy myself the last 2 weeks, because if there ever was a time to really enjoy yourself and maybe talk a little smack or you get hyped, it's the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, because there's no game after that. But then, of course, come game day, it's going to be something very different. So, Matt, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's really been a lot of fun to talk to you. Where can my listeners find you and the work that you do online?
Yeah, so you can find my written work at 49ers Hub. You can find our podcast at Fourth and Gold Podcast. We're available Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, the whole nine. Anywhere you can find them, you can find us. And you can find me on Twitter at @MattBarr_. It is 2 T's, 2 R's, and an underscore, which I'm never getting rid of. I tried so hard. There's an actor, Matt Barr, that has just the @Matt Barr handle. I have tried messaging him. I've tried messaging Twitter. I cannot get a hold of it. I can't do it. He hasn't sent a tweet out in 3 years.
I hate that.
Can't get that handle. So Matt Barr _.
That's why I'm Fan Show Official instead of just the Fan Show, because that's taken by an account that hasn't tweeted in 5 years. So
there you go. Yeah.
I know the struggle. But hey, man, enjoy Sunday. However you're going to, and sounds like you've got your plan. But yeah, just take it all in. Win or lose, it's been an incredible season. What a great way to end 100 seasons of NFL football than having the 49ers back in it. And I'm personally very thankful for that. So go follow him. Go give him a listen on Fourth and Gold, and go give him a read on 49ers Hub. But Matt, thank you again so much. Enjoy Sunday, and you have a great rest of your week.
Absolutely. You too, brother.
All right. Take care. And one more big thank you to Matt Barr for joining me on the last episode before Super Bowl Sunday. All right, folks. I think that will about do it. There's nothing more to do. We've talked about it. We've analyzed it. We've dissected it. And not just me. I mean, I wanted to devote this episode to it, but you go 17 weeks of football, including a bye, and then you go 2, maybe 3 more in the postseason, depending on your seeding, and then you have 2 between the conference championship and the Super Bowl. I mean, it's time for Super Bowl 54. 49ers, Chiefs, San Francisco, Kansas City. 3 more sleeps. We will see you guys Tuesday. Hopefully it's on awesome terms. But regardless, I will see you guys next week. We'll have all new episodes for you. We're going to keep this locomotive a-going. And of course, it's not official unless it's Fan Show Official. And for the last time before Super Bowl 54, we are officially out of here. So remember, best of luck to you and yours, even if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. But most importantly, and for the last time of the 2019-2020 NFL season, NFL 100, go Niners! And of course, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks!
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his own player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.